The junior studio teachers would like to offer these 3 sewing techniques for hand sewing. The first is a basic basting stitch. It is the most basic hand stitch and generally a temporary stitch that will be replaced later by final sewing. It's used to join 2 or more layers of fabric together to prepare for sewing or to see portions of a garment during construction. You have more control than pins. The second is a catch stitch, which is used on the inside of the garment primarily for hems. It's visible on the inside hem allowance and inconspicuous from the outside of the garment. And the third is thread tracing, which is a temporary stitch used for marking fabric grain lines or other construction and will be removed as the garment is completed. It allows for fabric marking without damaging or staining the fabric and allows you to see how the grain is laying as you drape or work with fabric.
Place layers of fabric right side to right side, flat on a smooth surface. Sometimes with very soft, stretchy or bulky fabrics, you may still want to use pins to help keep the layers securely together while hand basting. Since this type of stitch is only temporary, choose a sharp, long needle and contrasting color thread for better visibility and easier removal. Use a knot or a single back stitch at the start of the stitch line. Work several stitches approximately 1/4 inch long by passing the needle in and out of the fabric and pull the thread. Keep the stitches and spaces as even as possible. Keep the thread flat but not too tight, as this will cause the permanent seam to be puckered. If the basting has stretched the fabric, the permanent seam will also be stretched. Place the stitches slightly outside the permanent stitch line for easier removal. For example, if the actual seam allowance is 1/2 inch, keep basting line 3/8 inch from the cut edge. End the basting stitch by a single back stitch, once again for easier removal later. After permanent stitch line is done, carefully clip both back tacks of basting stitch and pull the basting thread out. Now you can press the seam as needed.
Lay the fabric flat on the table, wrong side up. Fold over the hem allowance onto the wrong side, keeping the hem allowance on your left, and position the hem perpendicular to you. Press or pin the hem allowance to desired amount. Hold the needle parallel to the hem, pointed away from you, and begin sewing at the top. Take a short stitch on the hem fold layer to anchor your hand stitch. Move the needle right, place a tiny stitch on the wrong side body layer, just pick up 1 or 2 threads. Needle left, take a short stitch on the hem layer, a more secure stitch. As you move the stitch from right to left, make sure the thread is above the needle and the needle moves up through the loop. Alternate right and left, keeping the needle pointed parallel to the hem. Use moderate thread tension, not too loose or not too tight, and keeping the fabric flat on the table. Stitches will be about 1/2 inch. The size of the stitch will increase or decrease according to the weight and type of fabric used. The finished work will be inconspicuous from the outside of the garment. And remember, always use matching thread color for sewing fashion fabrics. Lay the fabric flat on the table right side up. Look for the length grain of the fabric, which is parallel to the selvage edge of the fabric. Note, some sophomore studio projects require pulled threads on muslin projects. If so, you will be thread tracing the grain you pulled. For fashion fabrics or clothing under construction, threads are not pulled and the length grain can be found by measuring from the selvage edge of the fabric. The thread tracing will follow a single length thread in the weave. Trace with the needle in and out 3/4, 1/4, 1/4, repeat. 3/4, 1/4, 1/4, repeat to create a stitched line that follows the grain.